Hello.
Hi,
How are
Holly.
you?
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm pretty good, despite everything that's going on in the world right now. It could be better, right? Yeah, and I mean, I was just reading something today about how with this pandemic, um, how it's yes, physically it's not, it's hitting people for sure. Like people are dying and people are getting sick from it. But of course, there's the mental aspect, like the mental health aspect, that I think that a lot of people, you have a group of people who get just stressed out, and that's majority of most people, and that's pretty typical feeling. You're gonna feel stressed, and you're gonna feel, I guess, that kind of yeah, I guess stress feeling. I'm trying to think of the word. Um, but
Pressure,
uh, it's like a mental illness. I just uh,
depression,
depressed. Like everyone's gonna feel that kind of
anxiety.
depressed kind of feeling, right? And anxious, and everyone's gonna get that feeling of anxiety, right? But for the people who actually have a bit of that disorder, yeah, it's even gonna be harder for them. I mean, medication can help, but this certainly does not help.
No, no. Now, is that something you want to actually touch on during your podcast at all, or do you want us to talk a little bit about that?
No, I just because it's a pretty, it's a topic that everyone's talking about these days, right? Um, no, unless if you like, we can if you like to, but that's totally up to you. I kind of wanted to ask you like about what you do. Like, I kind of have an idea what you do, but just want to get more in depth with
Okay.
what you do, and then wherever we go, we go. So.
So, if you want to sort of go ahead and get started, then I'll follow your lead. I'll let you just sort of ask me whatever you want to ask, and I'll just follow along.
Okay. So I've been following your Facebook page for a while. I noticed that you do have Instagram now as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Beyond belief. So I know that you do readings and you're able to do things like that for people. So can you explain to me how you do those things? I guess that's kind of a harder question because you just naturally do it, but like how like can you take me through the steps of how you go about that?
Sure. So first, I think it would be a good idea. Do you want me to actually start with telling you a little bit about myself and telling your viewers a little bit about myself?
Yeah, maybe you could tell me a little bit how this started, how you discovered it.
Okay. So obviously my name's Holly McGeorge and I own Beyond Belief Psychic Mediums. And I am both a psychic and a medium. And what that essentially means is that I can talk about past, present, and future and make predictions. But I also connect with spirit that's departed on the other side. So that's what makes my ability slightly unique. Quite often, somebody will be one or the other, they won't necessarily be both.
Okay.
And one of the biggest questions I've always been asked is, how did I know when I had this, or how did I know that I had this? And I always say to people, the better question is, when did I figure out not everybody had this, so to speak, because this goes back as far as I can remember. And I do believe it all started when I was 2 years old. We had gone to my family cottage back in 1973 in August. And it was my mom, myself, my brother, um, my dad, and my cousin Diana, who people will often see on my videos when I do lives. She
Okay.
was 12 at the time, I was two, and we always shared a bed because she was sort of in charge of looking after me. And she woke up the morning of August 11th around 5:30, and basically, when she came out into the living room where I was, she discovered that my father was sitting up on the couch dead, and I had actually found him. So, from the point that my father passed away until I was 14 years old, he was with me. And so I don't remember a time in my life he wasn't present and with me. until I was 14, and he took me to a church that I was baptized in. Basically, walked me to the front of the church, handed me over to my mother, and left, and I've never seen him since. And then a year after that, we were actually at a lake at a different location, and I drowned. And at the time that I drowned, I physically crossed over to the other side. And then I always say to people, unfortunately, I was brought back. And I always say unfortunately because I didn't want to come back. The entire experience from the second that I actually drowned and crossed over to the point of coming back was absolutely amazing. So I was there long enough to get a good insight into what it's like and what it feels like, and get a really good grasp on how it is. But obviously, I wasn't there as long as I would have loved to be. And then following that, when I was 14 years old, I planned a surprise birthday party for my mom and my stepdad. And my brother's girlfriend, who was invited to the party, Linda, on her way to the party, was in a horrible car accident in a little place called Holly, of all things, and was killed. And that was on May 2 for a weekend. And she was then the second spirit that started to come and see me. So for me, things like that happened throughout my entire life. Then, when I became a young adult, I went to hairdressing school and became a hairstylist and opened my own hair salon. And as I'd be doing somebody's hair, I'd suddenly pop out with really crazy things like, you remember when your old Uncle Jack used to do blah, blah, blah? And suddenly the client would be like, whoa, wait a minute, Chloe. I have never spoken to you about my Uncle Jack, who
Yeah.
just to be dead. Where did that come from? And I'd be like, beats me, ask Jack. So things like that were a common occurrence within my life. I would have what I call precognitive dreams, where I would dream about things before they would happen. Uh,
Hmm.
a good example was about, we'll say, 12 years or so ago, I had a dream that my brother in law had blockages in his heart and was going to have a massive heart attack and would almost die. And it was so vivid, and I was so certain of it, that that Christmas Eve, when I had my family Christmas, I actually took him out on the front porch and basically told him, something's very wrong with your heart. You have to go to a doctor. Promise me you're going to go to a doctor or you're going to die. And at that time, he actually laughed and joked about it, because my family, I didn't really open up with my family to the extent of my abilities, and I don't really think any of them quite took it seriously, anyways. So, of course, he did not listen to me. And the following April, he had a massive heart attack and almost died. Ended up in intensive care. They actually did have to revive him several times. And of course, he had blockages to his heart. So,
Hmm.
exactly what I had dreamt about and predicted. So, things like that, again, were a very regular occurrence. And then 19 years ago, December 20th, my mother, actually the 19th of December, my mother went to bed and passed away. And through that experience, my abilities went through the roof. And I think it's because my mother also had my gift, but she read tea leaves. And I think that her gift actually essentially transferred to me. So mine was like on steroids at that point. So
Right.
going through the experience of losing my mom, um, planning the funeral was very difficult, and I ended up basically going in to tell the funeral home off several months after, or no, several weeks after my mother passed away. And through that experience, they actually ended up offering me a job. So my mom died December 19th, and in April, I began my career in bereavement services.
Oh
And I
wow.
worked in bereavement with the coroner's office, in the funeral homes and the cemetery, for just under 17 years. And
Oh wow.
so during obviously that experience, I really understood how profound my ability actually was, because I would be in a room making arrangements with a family for their departed loved one, and they would be actually sitting in the room with me, telling me things. So, a good example was I had a large family come in one time. There was 11 of them, and I made all the arrangements, and then I got up to take them for a tour of the facility. I had the file folder in my left arm, walked through the building showing them the different areas. And as we got to the reception lounge, everybody sort of went into the reception lounge ahead of me, except the gentleman's daughter stopped right beside me. And her and I were talking very casually, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I took my right arm and I swung it out and I hit her as hard as you could hit somebody, just about knocked her on her back. She actually stumbled backwards. And I turned my head and said, "Here's a little tip, sweetheart." And then, as fast as I did that, I went like this and said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And the daughter started screaming, oh my God, my dad's here." And I immediately said, "Where?" And she goes, "You're a medium, you're a psychic." And I said, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not." She said, "Yes, you are." I said, "I swear to God, I'm not one of those." And she
Right.
said, "Yes, you are, because everybody that came into my dad's home, the first thing he did was smack them just like that and said, 'Here's a little tip.'" And so every set of flowers that came into his funeral had a card on it, and the card said, "Here's a little tip, let me give you a tip," etc., etc. So, anyways, I waited about 3 weeks to get fired from my job. Lo and behold, the family wrote a letter to head office all about their experience with me. And I did end up getting a call from the president of sales to ask me what on God's earth was I doing in a room with my families, because this family wrote like a 7-page letter in the head office about me. So anyway, I didn't lose my job, which was fantastic. And then about 3 years ago, somebody that I knew casually, who used to be a neighbor of mine, who just in fun I had done some readings on, we ended up reconnecting after not speaking for about 10 years. And she came to visit me. And when she came to visit me, she was telling me she'd opened this business and that she was thinking about bringing a psychic in, and that she knew this one psychic, the most incredible psychic of all psychics she'd ever met. And I said, "Well, get a hold of them. Maybe they'd be interested." The long and the short was, 45 minutes later, she said, "I'm talking about you. Would you come and do
Mhm.
readings there?" And I said, "No way." I ended up agreeing that if she brought me 3 specimens and got their feedback and they thought it was good, I'd consider doing readings there. So she went and immediately found 3 people and called me within 12 hours and said, "When can you see them?" I did those 3 readings and apparently blew their minds. And I started just doing it on Saturdays. And within 3 months, I was booked solid every Saturday, had to add Wednesday nights. And by following, I think that was in around November, December, I started. The following October, I was a group benefits manager at that time with a large insurance company. I went to a big trip out in uh, Calgary, a business meeting, came back from Calgary and resigned from my full time position and started doing this as my full time career. So I am the sole support of a family of 5. And this is my full time business. And
Oh
since
wow.
yeah, so, and since then I have been traveling globally. So I actually go out to California once a year and work. I've been out to New York because I've got something really big going on behind the scenes right now. That's actually going to be taking place out of New York. And I have literally done readings all over the globe. So my business has traveled very far and wide quite quickly. Um, so, what I do when somebody comes to see me or when I do a virtual reading, such as how you and I are right now, the only information I require is I ask people to provide me their full entire birth name and their date of birth. And then I give them a speech after I get that information. And once I give the speech, that's the indication to the other side. I'm now open to receive information, and then I get downloads, is what I describe it on as. So the other side just starts giving me information, or departed loved ones will step forward and I will channel them during the session. So every session's different. No 2 sessions are ever the same. And
Right.
I've made a lot of really crazy predictions and they all seem to come true.
Oh wow.
Sometimes the one thing that can be slightly off is timing. So, I might say it's going to happen by this time frame, and it either takes a little bit longer or happens a little bit sooner. But generally speaking, I'm pretty bang on with time frames as well. Um, Technically, I always told people I practice psychometry. So, in other words, I would hold an item, and based off the energy of that item, I could make a connection to that person. And that's how I would essentially get my information. I don't even have to hold anything really to do a reading. Um, I always just say it's kind of like giving me steroids if I do hold an item.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, just sort of enhances that connection. Um, so that's kind of how I operate, and a little bit about where my ability started. It's in my family as well, right? So I think some of it's in the lineage. It's just because I'm not the only one. My cousin Diana, that you may have seen on some of my episodes, she
Hmm.
also has it. She always says nothing like me, but hers is actually quite strong, to be perfectly honest with you. So there is that family connection to it. A lot of people seem to have a bit of intuition in my family. And with my ability, I really don't have a lot of ability to just turn it off or on. It just, I seem to always be on. So if I had an appointment booked, for example, with you today, I'd be getting ready for my appointment and I'm already getting information. So
Right.
departed ones might step forward, information about their lives might come forward, but it's kind of like it opens that channel up right away. And when I channel people, they will often give me the symptoms of how they died. So I here's an example. I once was going to do a party in the Chatham area, and on my way to the party, a gentleman stepped forward by name, and immediately I took a massive blow to the center of my chest. And it turns out that that man had shot himself in the chest. So I
Ooh.
actually felt the blow of the gun into the chest. If someone's had a heart attack, I will get the symptoms of the heart attack. So sometimes when I'm on my lives, that's partly why I try to avoid channeling spirits, because there's so many people watching that everybody lines up. And suddenly I start not feeling well at all because I'm experiencing the symptoms of how all these different people passed away. And until I validate those things, the symptoms won't leave.
Well, and I mean that must be quite difficult, especially when you were telling me about the spirit that said that he shot himself in the chest and you were having like chest pains. I mean, that's a pretty typical that can be a typical symptom of heart attacks, heart disease, et cetera, et cetera. So, like, I'm sure that would probably be difficult for you to distinguish, like, or do you already know that it's coming from a spirit, or like, because we all have pains and aches in our bodies. So, how do you already know that it's a spirit trying to get to you, and your experience, like how you were saying before? Like, can you distinguish, like, can you distinguish between, hey, I just have a stomach ache, uh, uh, besides, or sorry, it's like I have a stomach ache, or no, it's a spirit, like how you were explaining. Sorry, I'm having a hard time explaining what I'm trying to say.
No, 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 I get it. So how do I determine whether it's my symptoms or are those the symptoms of somebody in channel?
Yes,
Which
yes.
is really, really good question, because quite honestly, there's times where I don't know. And how I usually am able to figure it out is if it goes away. So if I acknowledge or validate a spirit, for example, and it's their symptoms, then the symptoms will subside. But until I do that, I will continue having the symptoms. So, for example, when I go out in public and my symptoms are, I take on symptoms, I'll generally know because they'll suddenly just come up out of nowhere. So I'm getting better at determining what's mine
Mhm.
and what's not. I did, in fact, though, run into a bit of trouble because I left work one day a few years ago when I worked as a manager in the financial services industry, and I was working at a Kitchener. I left work on a Friday afternoon at 4, and I started having very significant symptoms of a heart attack. So
Mm-hmm.
much so that I didn't know if I was having an anxiety attack or what, but I phoned my husband, was talking to my husband and describing things to him and saying to him, I don't know if this is mine or if it belongs to someone else. And in fact, I even ended up throwing up outside the window of the car on the highway. And it wasn't until I got home, an hour after I got home, my husband said he thought he should take me to the hospital. And I actually had a heart attack.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, well, thank you. So at that time, because I wasn't able to quite distinguish, I let it go a lot longer than what I would have normally if I didn't have this situation that I dealt with, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it can be dangerous to not know for sure what's mine and what's somebody else's. That's for certain.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, talking about heart attacks, I'm pretty scared shitless because pretty much my entire family tree. I'm not saying, I mean, you can die either of any cause, but I mean, typically, a lot of things happen that will run through the family, and my whole family is like diabetes, heart problems. So I'm not, we all know we're gonna die one day. So, yeah, I'm not, I'm it wouldn't surprise me if that does happen. And that's why I try to take care of myself. I'm always, like I'm always dieting, taking care of myself because I mean, it's like everything. It seems like everything like you see news or um, you hear like everything. There's always like a new study like this is what, this causes this, and it's like, sometimes it's just good to enjoy life because,
You
you
never
never
know.
know.
Yeah.
Uh, and I remember, sorry.
Go ahead. No, no, you go ahead.
I remember you mentioning something about it kind of running through your family. Like you said, your sister had it. Um, and it's interesting that you bring that up because, like I said, I previously told you before, I have a bit of that. I have a bit of that runs through my family as well. I have a little bit of it, not to the same extent. Um, but it's like my mom has it, my aunt has it. Pretty much my mom's side has a lot of it. Um, I know that my aunt, my cousin, my mom, my sister a little bit, but my sister's, my sister can be how she is sometimes. I really don't know if she's just kind of saying it just to get me hyped up, like, hey, look, this is what's going on. But as far back as I remember, I know for myself, I've had the ability to see spirits, not in broad daylight, not like as a real person, but for sure my own home. Like we have family members that have passed, so um, like I mean, even my grandfather, like I still believe that he sent like I guess what would you call it, like kind of a post-death like communication, I guess. And like we had a bunch of flowers. We had a cat, but we knew the cat never could jump up on the table, or yeah, I guess the table at the time. God, it was like a long time ago when he died. Um, but there was a bunch of these like flowers that he really liked that we brought home from the funeral home, and we had it. I think we went out for dinner or something with the whole family, as you normally would do when a family member passes. And we came back, and all the petals off the flower were plucked off, and they're all put out neatly. We knew it wasn't the cat, and we didn't have the dog at the time, and I think that kind of triggered some things. And ever since then, I've been able to see things that go through the home. Sometimes when I go through someone else's home, I'll get this kind of feeling. Like I can give a really good example. This just happened back in the summer. A friend of mine, Jared, he lives outside of Chatham, and the home he lives in is quite old. I mean, not to say that it's haunted by any means, but I went up and I just had a strange feeling going into his home, and I said, like, you ever had anybody die here? He's like, why? I'm like, I just got the weirdest. I just, as soon as I walked in his home, he's like, I don't think so. It's my grandpa's home. I said, okay, well, we had to go upstairs to grab something out of his room, and I was walking up the stairs, and I just had this feeling like a pressure on my chest, and I'm like, dude, I don't feel comfortable being up here. He's like, what do you mean? I said, I just don't feel comfortable being up there, and he's like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, it's my house. Like, I'm sorry if he didn't understand what I was trying to say. I said, dude, like, it just, I'm getting the weirdest kind of feeling, and and it was something. There's some kind of energy that didn't agree with me, I guess. And it's not the first time I've had that. And as well as there's a place in Chatham. It's called the Milliner Heritage House, and it's been believed that there's spirits there. And and the one time that I went in there, they had like they you can go in any time the year mostly, and like during the summer time, and then into the fall a little bit. And I went in there, and they were kind of talking about the house, and I knew about what like some of the claims of the spirits there. And I remember going upstairs, and I was going by one of the kids' rooms, and it's just the same kind of feeling, the pressure on my chest, and almost like it wasn't that I couldn't breathe, but it was almost like just like the energy level just felt very heavy, and it was a really weird feeling. And I get the same kind of feeling once in a while when I go in other people's homes, or not so much my own, but other people's homes. I'll get that, and and I can remember going by. There was a dining room, and I can remember going in there, and kind of in the corner of my eye, I could kind of see, uh, kind of, it almost looked like somebody was standing, like, and they had their hand on the chair, and I kind of had to turn my head. I'm like, what? Like, and I thought there was someone in there, and you weren't supposed to go upstairs, but the person that was doing the tour had to. They were kind of showing me around the front part of the house, and then they went out and stepped outside. And so I went upstairs, and they didn't recommend it because they've had staff claims being pushed down the stairs. And so they didn't really want people going upstairs. Like they said, yes, you can, but we advise you not to. Well, the person that was showing me the tour, they were like, no, 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 don't do it. And I went up there anyway. And yeah, and I thought it was one of the tour guys. So I kind of got startled for a second. I'm like, oh geez, so I kind of turned around, and then I kind of looked back and I didn't hear anybody go after me. So I'm thinking, oh geez. So, I've had experiences like that. I wouldn't say that I have, um, I guess a gift, but I'm a little bit more sensitive to, I guess, my sixth sense, I guess, and as well as my mom. And I've also had like vivid dreams as well, like seeing things, um, like like I had insight that the coronavirus was going to happen. Not so much like, yes, yeah, coronavirus is going to happen. It's going to start in China. Not so much like that, but it was more of a just more of the insight, like something's coming around the corner, and I wasn't sure what it was. But it was almost like just had that feeling that something was coming. It was going to be a global thing. Um, and as much as me, like I do have a bit of phobia about things, so that can just be me as well. Um, but there's also that, and as well, the reason why I started having vivid dreams was I used to be, when I was a little bit younger, I used to collect a lot of like haunted items. And this is when my room was upstairs. So I used to like to collect like haunted dolls and things like that. Um,
Right.
and it was something that I just enjoyed. I enjoyed paranormal stuff. But my mom she kind of got a little upset because she didn't want me bringing in things in the home that you don't know, what they could be.
From
I'm sorry.
where they came from, right? Like she doesn't
Right.
want something that she doesn't know where it came from.
Absolutely. And I think the first, and I made connections with the spirits quite quick. With the one being, I think one was Amelia. Apparently, she was the spirit of about a 7-year-old girl, and I can remember they were always telling me, like, if you put the movie Frozen on, she really enjoys that. And I was like, okay, but like that's the whole point of me. I enjoy paranormal stuff, so I'm like, okay, let's see if this works, because I wasn't really getting any connection with the spirit. I wasn't really like, and maybe that was it. It was just because she was a bit of a younger spirit. Wasn't sure if she wanted to connect with me or not. So I put that movie on, and then as soon as I put on, there was a song that was in the movie, As soon as it came on, it was like this weirdest channel of energy that I haven't felt in a while. And I don't know, it was just it was unbelievable. And I had they're like I can't remember what the device is called. It's like it has like it lights up
Like
when you want me.
EFT meter? Are you
Yes.
like an EFT meter?
Yes, and I put that by her, and it started going off like crazy. And I know that it can go off around. Excuse me, sorry.
Certain appliances and that, right?
Yeah, and but it was going off like crazy. I'm like, okay. I was like, all right, I hear you. And she just and it kept going up and just kept going crazy. And I remember and I went to go grab something. I was like, Mom, you got to see this. And I came back and it was knocked over. I'm like, oh my God. So after that, I got another doll, and it was of a 33-year-old woman who was a nurse and at I think the New Mexico State Penitentiary. And within the second night of having the doll in my room, I can remember I was laying in bed and I saw a silhouette of a woman at my door, and she came walking and she walked over my bed, and I was shaking obviously because I never seen anything like that. And obviously I knew it wasn't anybody in my family, so either it was an intruder or it was what I believed it was, and didn't say anything, but she just stood there, and I knew it was her because it had she had that kind of characteristics of what she would have probably looked like in the 1930s, the kind of dress, the hairstyle. And I didn't tell my parents this for a while because I was scared that I was gonna be in trouble, or I didn't know what they were gonna think. And then soon after, I had to get rid of them because the energy was just so intense every time I go in my room. And it was just, and a lot of my friends were kind of creeped out because like the dolls are just they're porcelain dolls, so when they're staring at you, like a lot of people get freaked out about that.
Yeah.
So
Clown porcelain dolls people get really freaked out by.
yeah, my great grandmother, she used to have like a bunch of porcelain dolls. She lived out in like a trailer park, like kind of in a huge like a mobile home, and she used to have all these porcelain dolls. And then when I was a kid, it freaked me out. Like it used to freak me out. And same with my sister. Like my sister used to sleep in the living room, but she stopped doing that because of the dolls. So my great grandmother just anyway, she used to love that stuff. But that's kind of where I kind of stand with the paranormal. And um, I guess that's kind of my story about how I kind of have a bit of that more connection. I have it more than my sister and probably my mom, but my aunt for sure. My aunt has seen my grandfather, which would be her father, like walk in the living room. I've heard him as well. Like I can't remember what it. I was probably maybe about 13, maybe 12, 13. I remember sitting in my room, and it was something very faint. Like I can't remember, but I knew it was his voice. Um, but yeah, as far back as I remember, I've always had a bit of that extent of the sixth sense for sure.
Yeah. I actually think your ability might be slightly stronger than you realize, even, to be honest with you. Um,
Right.
I think it's a little bit stronger than what you give it credit to be honest.
Right.
So I think it's a bit more than just a sixth sense with you. So it's something that if you were to practice and do different kinds of exercises, you could probably tweak it even more.
Right. And not just that, and as well, like I said, I do see some things that happen before they happen. And like as simple, I mean, this could just be a coincidence because I'm a part-time, which I'm working like full-time hours, so I get a lot of call-in shifts. And I remember one time, and I knew exactly the person that was going to call me in, and I didn't know what time they were going to call me in, but I was thinking about it. I was like, they're going to call you in for a shift today. It's going to be for an afternoon shift. Surely enough, 10 minutes later, I get a call from work, and they're like, hey, do you want to come in? I mean, that could have just been, I still debate with myself over that, if that was just a coincidence, because, it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for them to call me in. But that's happened more than once on occasion. Um, so whether that
Well,
just be
I'll try to quite often justify, right? We don't, you know what I mean? We all try to sometimes justify information that's happening. And
right.
so it probably wasn't just coincidence. I have to, even myself, I have to learn to listen more when it comes to me.
Hmm.
2 or 3 years ago at Christmas, I think it was 3 years ago, I got my daughter a cell phone for Christmas, and somehow I lost uh, the SIM card that had to go in it. So of course on Boxing Day, what kid doesn't want a SIM card for their new phone? We were Her and her boyfriend and myself got in the car to go to London. I had a brand new vehicle at the time, 30 days old, Nissan Rogue. I believe it was a Rogue. It might have been a little bit longer than three. No, it was 3 years ago, 3 or 4. Anyway, we go into London to Rogers, and as we were driving into London, they showed me a vision of a car coming through an intersection and hitting me. But it was at a light, and I was like, oh, great. But then by the time I got to London, I'd almost forgot about the vision. I was like, oh, you're probably just being paranoid because it's a brand new vehicle. Long story short, we get to London, we go to the Rogers parking lot, the plaza where the Rogers was, go in, do what we had to do. We come out. My daughter and her boyfriend get in the back seat of the car. I get in the driver's side. Just as I finished closing the door on the driver's side, some guy who was going way too fast in the parking lot came zooming up, and I knew he was going to hit me. As he went to turn, instead of turning, he drove right into me and hit right between the two doors, exactly where my leg had just come into the vehicle.
Oh,
Anyway, like $3,000 damage. So the accident didn't happen at a light, but ironically, the plaza where I was parked was right kind of at an intersection. So anyway, I saw the accident before I even went. I should have turned around and just come home and said, no, no, we'll go another day, but I didn't. So
right,
sometimes I don't listen to my own intuition also. So you're not alone there. Most people don't, right?
right. And I guess another thing I was going to ask you about seeing things and doing readings. I have to ask you, what is your opinion about? I mean, of course, it's Hollywood movies, but I mean, there are the true stories behind them. But have you ever seen any of the movies with The Conjuring at all?
Yes, everyone.
And do you believe that? I mean, the movies are obviously Hollywood, but do you believe the stories that those things are like Ed and Lorraine Warren? Do you think those stories were true, or are they a little kind of fabricated? Like they seem a little
Embellished.
embellished a little bit? Yeah.
So first of all, I want to say this. If you would have asked me that 5 years ago, I would have said they're a lot embellished, and I would have said uh, that it's probably mainly embellished.
Okay.
Now, and I won't spend a lot of time on exactly what I'm about to talk about because it can open up problems.
Right. Right. Right.
In The Conjuring, the very first one, where the kids are in the bedroom upstairs and there's that armoire, and the one sister wakes up and she looks above the armoire and sees that thing coming
Yeah.
down the room. It looks like something out of the depths of hell. Do you remember the scene I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think it's the woman, and then she like, but she's up there, and the girl like freaks out, and then, or is
Gonna
it
show you. I'm actually gonna show you because there's a picture of it online, just to make sure that I'm actually looking at the right movie as well. But
okay?
pictures on here um, of it, and I'm gonna show it to you to remind you. You'll recognize it the second that I
Okay.
do.
I mean,
Because go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I mean, the movies were well done. I mean, I really enjoy. Like, I'm a horror person. I generally like horror movies that are about real things because horror movies about killers and things. It doesn't. I think they're silly.
Yeah.
But like things that are actually scary actually scare me. I guess. But
So this is exactly the scene. Okay, do you remember that scene?
Oh yeah, yeah, yep, yep.
Okay,
I remember I saw that at the theater, and that part made me jump like the popcorn was flying.
me
Yeah.
too. So you've probably heard me talk about me helping out at that farmhouse that actually had a malevolent spirit in it from the guy playing with the Ouija board in the house over and over again by himself. And I ended up getting called there to do a party. When I went to do the party, I picked up on all the horrible stuff that was happening. I even gave the guy his money back after I did the reading on him because I felt so sorry for him. I didn't even want to charge him because I knew he was going through bad times. Well, what I did out there ended up following me home. And I was sitting in my
Yeah.
garage talking to my cousin Diana from the UK. I had my back towards the garage door, and at the time I was a smoker. And I was having a cigarette visiting with her on the iPad. So my picture was in the corner, just like it is with you now. Her picture was big on the iPad. And as we were sitting there talking, something caught me the corner of my eye, and behind me was a furnace up in the corner in my garage. And
Hmm.
as I looked up, that thing was coming out of the wall from behind my furnace in the garage. And I freaked out so bad that I actually threw my lit cigarette onto the carpet, grabbed my iPad to run, went to race in the house, slipped and smashed my leg on the steps, came in, raced into the living room where my husband was sound asleep in his recliner, jumped in his lap, and I grabbed his housecoat and had him seized and was screaming and freaking. And my cousin Diana on the iPad was having to try to calm me down and try to tell my husband what was going on. And so, up until I had that experience, I did not believe a lot of that, to be honest. I
Hmm.
thought it was way beyond just embellished. After experiencing what I experienced and saw, it's a pretty accurate account of what that stuff was.
Yeah. Well, and I've heard a lot of people tell me different stories, like friends of mine have told me scary stuff that happened to them, and I'm like, okay, like because you have friends or you get people that will just like to get you scared or just to entertain you. But I've had some people tell me some crazy stuff, um, actually, I someone did a reading of me. It was a friend. He used to be a friend of mine. His aunt, she passed away a while back. Um, but she was a medium, and she was able to tell me things that I'm like that I never had told her. Um, and after that, she confirmed the story that he had told me. And the story that he was telling me was he was at her place, and because she did so many readings of people at her in her home, she collected a lot of spirits and some really bad spirits. And he kept telling me about this spirit, this spirit that there was this old man with a long beard, and I was like, dude, get out of here. And then when we were over at her house, she's like, no, no, that's true. He got tossed down the stairs when he was a kid. And I'm like, dude, are you really serious? He's like, I'm serious. And I'm like, and when he told me that and when she confirmed that, after when I believed that, wow, this stuff is really real, it really made me think like how glad I am that nothing's ever happened to me, things like that ever happened to me, because it's one thing to fear things that are real in the world, or it's one thing to fear things that I guess
That you can see and
you
that
can see, but things that you don't see that can happen to you, that's scary. And I think a lot of people don't realize how important it is to be careful with things. Like, I know there's people that like I go into if you go to Windsor, there's a place called Spencer's. It's kind of it's more for like younger people, a lot of people that like to party and et cetera, et cetera. Well, they sell Ouija boards, and I just look at them like,
oh,
don't know
Spencer's,
what you're doing.
you mean Spencer's Gifts?
Yeah, Spencer, yeah,
And they sell like really inappropriate joke stuff. And
yeah, yeah.
I've actually, I like going in there and reading
I
it.
like it too. But it's nice. It's pretty cool stuff. I bought some T-shirts there. I bought some of those. It looks like there's one where it's like an alien T-shirt where it says, "Let's play meeting aliens" or something. It's like those it's like the 1950 retro. Like it's supposed to be like funny. Like there's one. It's like one like "Let's Sacrifice Toby" shirt, but they're pretty funny. But getting back to my point, they were selling Ouija boards, and I just look at them like shaking my head because I'm like, no, don't ever play with. I've asked other people I know that play with them. I'm like, don't play with a Ouija board. I'm serious. I played it with my own house. It's not funny. Like
Yeah.
it's not good. And I remember I played the Ouija board. My sister, I was about I just turned I was about 12 or 13. I was in grade 8, and my sister had returned from Brazil. She was there for a year on Rotary Exchange as a teenager. So she came back, and we threw kind of a getaway party, or not a getaway, but like a
Going away
welcome
party.
home party. And I can remember her friends brought over a Ouija board, and actually her room at the time, because we had another exchange student. Her room is actually the room I'm in now, but we've redone it a little bit. And I can remember one of her friends brought the Ouija board, and me being like, like 12, 13, I'm like, oh, yeah, 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 let's play it. And my sister's like, looks at me, she's like, you swear to God, you do not tell mom about this. And I was like, oh, okay. And, and nothing really happened. And then I remember I left the room, and all I heard was like a bunch of screaming. Everyone's running upstairs, and I'm like, "Oh, did you see something?" Like I'm like joking, and everyone's face was like pale because they're freaked out. And and then of course, me being the younger brother, I told my mom, and she was pretty upset. Um, and she's like, "You don't ever bring something like that in my home again." So there's things I'm sure my mom's hasn't told me, but it kind of gives me the feeling that there's things that have happened with my mom. Um, and like she's told me, like my mom has had the similar things that have happened in her life. Like she'll have dreams, or she'll see things before they happen, but the way she describes it, it doesn't sound like that. Whereas my sister's had more kind of like the opposite. So she's had things where I remember my grandpa Kelly died, and she told me that she had a dream about our grandpa Kelly, and when he died that night, and she had a dream about him coming to her in her sleep, and she said, I had a weirdest dream about grandpa. I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, I just had a weird dream. He came over and told me like everything was okay, that he was okay, and I woke up and I was puzzled. And then, yeah, sorry, this was before he died. And then the next night, sorry, yes, it was the next night. He was already in the hospital, and she thought that maybe she was dreaming that because he was in the hospital, and she was worried about him. I think he was there because he had a heart attack. I think he
Anybody with J initial connected to anything? And I wanted to interrupt you for a second only because I've had a male that's been nudging at me that's departed, but I think he departed with something related to heart. And so I just wanted to know, is there anybody with a J initial or that would have a J initial connected to them?
J initial. Uh, as far as I'm concerned, not in my family. No,
Okay.
there's nobody in my family with a J.
It could be a
It,
middle initial as well. It doesn't have to be a first initial. It could also be a middle initial.
um,
And I didn't mean to cut you off, but I only cut you off because did you have anyone that would have passed away from something related to heart or a heart attack?
well, actually, both my grandfathers died from it. My grandpa Kelly, he died of a heart attack. My grandpa Kirkland, I'm not too sure. He always had a weak heart. I can remember it's funny. I can remember just as if it was yesterday. I remember he had to go for surgery for his hip, and then I think he had heart disease, but he got it like he had some. I think he had a triple bypass, and then I'm trying to remember. And then
Because
yeah, sorry. And then I think he was in the he was. I think what happened was he had surgery on his hip, and then because he wasn't moving around, he had some I'm not sure what I can't remember what it was he died from.
Was it like a blood clot or something?
Yeah, it was hard. I was a kid at the time, and I haven't really asked my mom about it since. We don't talk about it. We don't really talk about family members about that kind of stuff. We'll talk about stories that have happened, but we don't talk about like anything that's happened. Um, but yeah, as far as I'm concerned. And I remember, I think I was reading and kind of changing the subject a little bit. I remember you in one of your videos that you did recently, you were talking about the coronavirus and how there's so much good that's going to come out of it because, like, you were kind of mentioning how families are going to get more connected and how, yeah, like we are going to learn to live more practical and maybe be more thankful for how our life is. So when the next time someone says, "Oh, I'm bored," well, when we're quarantined for a long time, for sure it's you know hopefully it will be hopefully people will be a little bit more mindful of how their life really is.
And
And
not take it as much.
exactly. Um, and I would agree. I actually, because you mentioned that, I was mentioning that to my mom. I told her about you, and I told her that, yeah, yeah. So I was listening to this woman about talking about all this stuff, and my mom's like, I agree. I totally agree with that. Um, but I mean, right now it is hard. I think it's hard on everybody. Um, especially for myself, it's difficult, especially where I work. I'm at risk, um, and and not just that. It's just a fact that my girlfriend, she lives out of town, so it's frustrating. Not like we both made the decision to not see each other just because where I work with people, so I don't want to bring something to her, whereas she has two different jobs, mind you. She's working from home at one, and then the other one she's semi. So if we can eliminate that risk, um, then it sucks, but it will pay off in the long run for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Too, I feel like I need to say to you right now as well, that just might help put things in perspective. We're only hearing the stories about the people who are getting the coronavirus and dying, and the people who are
yes.
ending up in intensive care.
Hmm.
And people don't realize that there are hundreds of thousands of other people out there who have
Hmm.
already had it, didn't even know that they had it, that are having it right now. And it's much more mild, right?
Absolutely.
Just
I
because I'm not saying we should loosen up how strict we are, we need to be very strict to get it nipped in the bud. But you can also get it and it can be very mild and not result in the worst case scenario, right?
mhm.
So um, I just think it's good to keep that in perspective because otherwise it becomes so scary, it's hard to function.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
Um, and then that's it. I mean, that's why I like when people post things on Facebook about good things that are happening. I'm like, there's people in my hometown who people who are recovering from it, and they said, yeah, it sucks, but I mean, guys, don't take it lightly. But I'm alive and I beat this thing. So, and instead of all the and that's the problem with the news. That's what news does. It they bring up the worst because that's why people watch the news. People want to know what's going on. Um, but yeah, I agree. I was looking online today. I think, I can't remember what the number was, but it was like so many people I think 96% are in mild and 4% are in
yeah.
intensive care, which doesn't even mean that they could die from it. It just means that they're not doing good. So, you know, it's out of our hands. I mean, we only can do what we can do, and
And up until just the last few days, we had not yet even reached the numbers of how many people die of the regular influenza every year. We hadn't even reached that number yet. We're just starting to now get to that number,
yeah.
right? So
Hmm.
if you think about it in that perspective, we still hadn't lost as many people as we would typically lose with a regular flu strain.
Right.
So it's just that this one has brought so much more attention globally, right? So anyway, it's really disappointing for a lot of people, but when's the last time gas was affordable?
Yeah, yeah. I'm okay with paying. I think last time I checked it was 66 cents. I'm okay with that.
Well, at one of the reserves near me, it was 53 cents.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
That's unheard. That's even before my time. So,
right. So anyway, there'll be a lot of good things that do end up shaking out of this. People just got to find different ways to entertain themselves right now, different ways to bond
mhm,
with people we love. And if everybody does their part, the sooner everybody does their part, the faster this thing will be behind us.
100%.
Right? So, and thank you, by the way, for doing a job and working at a job where you have no choice but to continue on. People like myself are extremely grateful to you and to the people like yourself that have to still keep going to work. But in
Mm,
all honesty, as much as there's this piece that's frustrating because of the risk that's involved with you still having to live your normal life, in a way, it's good that you're not having to sit at home and just try to find out how to pass time and not have something to be busying yourself with, right? So,
absolutely.
and are you finding that your work environment are taking reasonably good measures to make sure you're okay?
As much as we can. We try to sanitize everything. We wash our hands, we sanitize our hands. I mean, there's some things we can't really avoid. As part of my job, I'm required to sometimes do personal care. Like I work with people with intellectual disabilities. So part of my job sometimes requires me to get in people's space. But generally we try to, if there's no reason for us to be beside someone, we try to avoid it. Like I don't like to do it because I like to sit on the couch with someone and whether we watch something together or we do a puzzle together or we read a book together. I love to do things like that, and it sucks. I like to do things like that, but if I keep myself apart from someone in order to keep myself healthy and safe, I'm willing to do that. And we've been asked to keep ourselves apart from the people who we support. So yeah, things are different, but I think we're all gonna get through this together, and that's all we
Yeah.
can do.
Yeah, and that's the best way to look at it right now because if you don't, it can be very, very depressing, right?
Hmm.
Very depressing. Ha, the other thing too right now, if people are taking extra different supplements and different things like that, I meant to say to you, because you do have one bit of a worry you spoke about earlier on, which is some of the health issues that are in your bloodline, right? And so taking good care of yourself is huge. But turmeric curcuma, Google that and look at it. It's something we should all be taking.
I'm sorry.
Fantastic. So turmeric
Oh,
curcuma,
turmeric. Okay, yeah.
but actually buy the root and clean it up and take the pure root. And it's dirt cheap. It's $3.50 a package, roughly. And I'll just quickly show you what you do with it. It's
Okay.
great though for preventing heart issues and preventing diabetes, prevention of high blood pressure. So that's what turmeric looks like.
Okay. It kind of looks kind of like ginger in a way.
Very like ginger, and then you peel it so that it looks like that when you're done. Don't rinse it or wet it because it ruins it if you do.
Okay.
Dice it up and you leave it out to dry. And once it's dry, you blend it up and put it in a bullet. And if you eat 1 teaspoon a day, it has so many benefits. But do the googling and do the research. I think it's something that makes sense for you to be on
Hmm.
for preventative reasons.
Absolutely. I mean, if we can, um, the better you take care of yourself, I mean, I mean, the
So
more you take care of yourself, the better, your life is going to be, I think. Um, It's interesting how there's some people who just will destroy their bodies their entire life, and they live longer than, say, a 12-year-old that's got leukemia. Like it's nuts how life works like that. Um, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Um, but I'm a sole believer that if you can take care of yourself, you are what you eat, right? And if you can take care of yourself, I mean, it for sure. Like for me, actually, the true reason why I started really taking care of myself, well, for one, I mean, I actually wanted to lose a bunch of weight. That's where it all started. Was I wanted to lose weight, wanted to kind of look good for the ladies, kind of cliche. I think I was about 18, and or no, sorry, no, 18 is when I started college. Sorry, 20 is when I started. I really want to start doing it, and after that, then I started looking at it a different way. I'm like, okay, so I'm at my goal here. Why don't I just keep this up? I can get fitter and fitter, and you know what? And I had a lot of problems. I was having like acid reflux issues. I was having all these issues. I'm like, what is going? And I was put on meds for it, and I realized, oh right, I just need to change my diet around, and everything is, and then so it was a lot of things like that, and then in terms of that, there was a lot of it just in general. Like I looked at, I'm like, you know what? Why? Okay, I lost a bunch of this weight. Why don't I just keep taking care of myself? And I realized that, oh, veggies aren't that bad. So
Yeah, true, right? And besides which, to that note, nobody leaves the planet before they're supposed to. That's all predetermined how long we're going to be here.
right,
That's why it's so hard to wrap your head around why some go young, some go old, and different things like that. It's because it's all predestined. Not one of us will ever leave this planet 1 minute before we're supposed to.
right,
Us. So that you can be reassured of.
right.
We kind of choose how long we're going to be here for and what lessons we're going to lose or learn while we're here, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah. So, no matter what, you won't go until you're supposed to.
absolutely.
So, any other questions you wanted to ask, Luke, while we're kind of.
I think we got through everything. I think we can wrap up here.
All right. Well, thank you so much for thinking of me and inviting me to participate in your thing. I
You're
am
welcome.
be hosting a really cool virtual party, and I'm going to be selecting a few handpicked people to attend it.
Okay.
Um, but there'll be a few other people that also have abilities that will be involved. Is it something you would like me to keep you in mind for if you're available?
I'd be honored. Like I said, I'm a support worker, so I work shift work, so I'm working all over the place. So,
Well,
but yeah,
send,
if
I'll send you a message, and if you're available, great. And if you're not, understandable. How about that?
awesome, that sounds great to me.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Luke, for thinking of me, and I hope that you stay safe and stay healthy, and
Thank you.
hopefully you see your girlfriend soon.
Thank you. You as well.
Okay, take care, right?
You too.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye bye.